Hi everyone, I'm Jenya Romanova. This is an experiment. My friends and I were chatting, and for several days in a row, I kept hearing that I should start a podcast. It's a questionable idea, but I'm going to give it a try. We even prepared a topic. We had a homework assignment 12 steps. If you want to change your life, let's imagine it like this. You step out of your house in the morning. You're looking beautiful, in a wonderful mood. You get into your car, and where are you going? It doesn't really matter where you're going. The important thing is that you know where you're going. That's why the first rule for changing your life, and we usually want to change our life when it becomes unbearable to live the way we are living, no matter what caused it, is that we are already at that point. And accordingly, in order to drive somewhere from home, we need to set point B in the navigator. Let's imagine that we're driving to work. Let's imagine that we've been commuting to work for about 20 years. And not everything you do for 20 years will necessarily inspire you, give you energy, or bring you joy for 20 years straight. In fact, nothing ever promised that it would. Now let's imagine that, I don't know, it's something completely new. You're going shopping with a stylist, and your stylist is the same one Kylie Jenner uses. And it's your first meeting, and you're going to be trying on outfits, changing clothes, and maybe even some celebrity photographer will show up. What kind of mood would you be in heading to a place like that? Step number 1 is always to determine which direction I want to steer my life, where I want to take it. Not just where I could steer it, but where I want to steer it so badly that I honestly don't care what it takes to get there. I'm ready to do it right now. And this is where the biggest problem lies. Our brain has a certain idea of what is acceptable. In other words, you're supposed to have this, that, and the other. But really, who decided that, right? Why did my brain come to that conclusion? Well, because I've seen examples like that. Because the people around me more or less live that way. Because I've seen something like that, I don't know, maybe among friends, maybe on Instagram, because I know what's possible. But there's still so much out there that I don't know about. I had a personal example. One time I was just sitting there daydreaming, thinking about what I actually want. When I think, I write. That's why I have a bunch of notebooks on my desk. So I was sitting there in the evening, writing and writing about what I want. At that time, I was living in Moscow, and I was like, I want to live by the shore of something. And I thought, well, okay, I live in Moscow. What shore could I possibly live by in Moscow? And then I realized that actually I want to live by the ocean. And I got so scared of my own desire, because there I was, sitting in Moscow, with a wonderful life, very comfortable, and I must say, completely settled. I didn't lack anything, and basically I didn't really have to think about much. There were people who took care of things for me, and I was perfectly fine with that. Then it hit me. If I really want this, what do I need to do with my life? How do I need to change it in order to live by the ocean? I live by the ocean now. Why am I saying all this? Back then, in the distant year of 2018, when I finally allowed myself to truly admit what I wanted, it scared me so much because point A, where I was, and point B, where I wanted to be, were two completely different universes. And in order to create the universe at point B, you have to destroy the universe at point A. And it was a great one. So once we have clearly determined where our navigator is set to, we need to do one very important thing. This thing is called something very simple. I know what needs to be done, but I don't do it. And I don't know why. It reminded me of so many situations in my life. You know, it's like when you start trying to lose weight, but somehow at 11 at night you end up eating chips and you genuinely don't understand why it's happening. When you say something like, I need to start waking up earlier, and starting tomorrow I will. And you do know, right, that you need to wake up earlier? I mean, it's obvious. To wake up earlier, you need to go to bed earlier, right? I mean, it's absolutely clear. But somehow it just doesn't work out. And you don't understand why. And the most important thing is you don't even realize it. And then it finally hit me, because I know a lot of things, but I actually do very little. That was basically my whole way of thinking. I had this kind of program running like a hotline through all my thought processes. I called it fake it till you make it. My method was like this. I'd come up with some idea, gather a bunch of people, assign everyone tasks like, guys, that's it, we're building a spaceship, we're going to space. 2 weeks later, I wouldn't even answer phone calls. I'd be lying there depressed and panicking. I don't know, I'd be flying to some other country on a plane and so on and so forth. I'd say, I'll get back to you on Monday. And basically, that's how I started a huge number of projects in my life. And as you can imagine, only a small number of those projects actually made it to the result I wanted, to that very point B. That's exactly why when I realized this, it was very hard for me. It was very painful. Imagine that we are a computer, imagine that we are an iPhone, and imagine that the iPhone somehow became self-aware that it is an iPhone. And it's very painful to understand your own limitations, to realize that you're not programmed for what you actually want. And in order for you to even begin to break out of this program, you first need to realize that these programs exist. I have a really great example about this. My mom visited me recently. It was honestly a lifelong dream of mine. I've been living in Los Angeles for over 4 years, and it seemed like my mom would never come. But then she finally got everything together and got a visa. That's not so easy these days. And she came to visit me in Los Angeles. I was absolutely overjoyed. I wanted to show her everything that was happening here. And then at some point during breakfast, I was telling her something, and she just ignored me. When you're a child, the worst thing a mother can do is ignore you. I didn't understand why, but I just had a complete meltdown. I cried for about 3 hours, couldn't calm down, and just couldn't pull myself together. Then, after a few therapy sessions and some time had passed, we were in New York. One morning, my mom and I were doing something together. Again, I said something she disagreed with, and she started ignoring me. And I was like, wait, you're ignoring me right now, but I'm not falling for it anymore. And my mom was like, well, what do you mean? No, I'm not ignoring you. I said, you were ignoring me. Overall, it was really great because I was next to her, but I wasn't in the role of a child. My brain didn't react unexpectedly. That chain reaction just didn't happen suddenly. And somehow, it turned out that I spotted this pattern between us and inexplicably turned it off. 5 minutes later, I started ignoring my mom to reinforce the lesson, both for myself and for her. And she comes up to me and says, are you ignoring me? I said, yes, I'm ignoring you. She was like, oh, cool, I get it. And then we had a few situations where I would say something, she would stay silent, and then she'd say, I'm not ignoring you. I said, that doesn't work anymore. In the same way, between people in a system of relationships and in the system of realizing me and my project, which is also a system of relationships, there can be various programs that prevent us from doing what we know we should do, but don't. Step number 3. You can call it whatever you like, but I would call it just take action. Because if everything were that easy and simple, right? You would just walk out the door and go. But sometimes there are traffic jams, sometimes there are accidents, sometimes you run out of gas or your battery dies. A lot of different situations can happen along your way, and that's perfectly normal. Absolutely. I used to think that if I walked out of the house and the whole world wasn't clapping and waiting for me, then why did I even leave the house? It turned out that if I literally did something, I don't know, recorded a YouTube video or posted a reel, the whole world was supposed to come and say, oh my God, you created such a masterpiece. You did something so brilliant. We thank you with all our hearts. And of course, this fairy tale world mindset of mine would inevitably collide hard against reality. But that's also quite normal if you're taking action. I'm a very mood-driven person and I can wake up in a bad mood. And that has happened many times. But before, I used to see it as a given. Like I'd wake up in a bad mood and think, well, that's it. Bad mood, day wasted. Just wait for it to end and hope tomorrow will be better. But now, when I have a goal, when I have a desire, when I have a point B that I really want to reach, I tell myself, okay, it doesn't matter what state I woke up in. It doesn't matter what mood I woke up in. I will definitely take a step toward improving my mood. It's not about the mood, it's about the inner creative mindset, because when you're in a bad mood, you can't create. So moving on to step number 3. I call it taking action with 3 subpoints. The first subpoint is about becoming aware of your connection with yourself, reconnecting with yourself. And I've mentioned that sometimes I wake up in a bad mood. The second subpoint is to reject things. And the third subpoint is to create what you want. This is truly a brilliant system. When I came up with it, I was the happiest person in the world. It felt like I had hacked the entire universe, like I now knew everything. I practically had Harry Potter's magic wand. Before, when I woke up in a really bad mood, I couldn't truly create anything around me except more bad mood. Because a person who's in a bad mood can only create something bad. I would just wait for the day to end. But now I don't have that luxury. And I realized, why am I trying to run away from a bad mood? Why am I trying to run away from sadness? After all, it can be very, very creative. It can be very constructive, and I want to connect with my emotions. And then I told myself, all right, okay, sadness, hello, I see you, let's connect. And what is this sadness of mine about? Because before I wanted to run away from any nuances in the range of emotions, and I only accepted bliss. But life, it's different. And that's its charm, that's its thrill, and that's the whole point. And when I connected with my sadness, I realized that I was completely unhappy with what was happening around me. I was like, what exactly are you unhappy with? Well, yesterday, instead of sleeping, I spent 2 hours watching some dumb reels. It absolutely irritates me. I really don't like it at all. I'm wasting my time, but for some reason, I keep doing it. Moving on to point 2. I was like, okay, fine. How do you want to spend your evening? And I told myself that I want to spend my evening differently. And on that very same day, when I connected with my sadness and realized that I wasn't okay with staying in that mood, in that state all day, I wrote myself a list of how I wanted to spend my evening. I really love everything related to feminine energy and all those girly things. I absolutely love taking showers, slathering myself with all sorts of creams, doing face masks, and putting a million different products on my hair. And I realized, oh my God, I could have spent 2 hours just covering myself in all these deliciously scented products while some great music played in the background, and everything would have been just perfect. Why was I even watching those silly reels? And as soon as I realized what was making me feel down, that I didn't agree with it, and I understood what actually lights me up, even now, as I'm telling you this, you should be able to feel it through the camera. The energy even shifts when you understand what it is you truly want. When I realized that this actually works, you connect with yourself, you refuse to accept the current situation, and you create what you truly want. And it's so simple. You just have to do it. That's why I called step 3, do. Do it and it will happen. All right, step number 4. My absolute favorite step. I always have some kind of visualization on my phone, some kind of board that gives me energy, that brings me joy. And it's something about point B. When you focus on what you don't have yet, meaning I'm still at point A, I really want to get to point B, and I have B minus A, I'm sitting there stuck in that minus. Look, point 3. You're not going to create anything good. By the way, if you've already noticed it running through all the steps, you will create. That's a little secret we'll probably reveal to you in part 2. Anyway, when you're focused on what you don't have, like with a bad mood, you start seeing what you lack everywhere. The example is the most basic, the simplest one. Once, I was picking out a new car, and my friend said to me, "Hey, why don't you check out a Porsche?" And I was like, "Me? Am I already allowed to? Is it okay? Is that normal?" I was just completely confused. I didn't know that I could already get a Porsche. How much does a Porsche cost? It felt like it was for others. He said, "Yeah, listen, let's go. I'll show you how it all works." When I sat in that car, I was like, look at me from the outside. Do I look okay in this car? And when you experience a new level or reach a new point B, you have to understand how you feel about it. How do you even feel about it? How does it even happen? And after I tried driving the new Porsche, it was just a complete mind blow for me. Really. I had no idea a car could drive like that because the Porsche moved as if it were on rails. For me, it was pure magic. After that, I walked out of the dealership, and all I could see everywhere was Porsche. My brain filtered the entire traffic flow, picking out only those cars, only that brand, only that color. And I realized that basically the solution is clear. What am I talking about? about the fact that your focus of attention always scales outward into the external world. And accordingly, if you focus your attention on the fact that you want B, but you have A, and you have B minus A, meaning you're in the negative, then everything around you will also be in the negative. But if you focus on the fact that you actually want B, but you already have A, and at this point A, everything is actually great, and you can be grateful for that, first and foremost to yourself, and say, actually, everything is awesome. I like it. If I have reached this point, this is my point A now, but it used to be my point B back then. So then, what do I focus on? Perhaps on the fact that any point B simply comes to me effortlessly. And then we proceed as follows. What am I like at point B? It's when you imagine how your day is structured, literally in detail, how your life is organized. Like, can you picture what your plan is for tomorrow? Now, imagine your carefully and thoughtfully crafted plan for that specific important moment in your life when you are living at your point B. Create some kind of mood board for yourself. Start dressing that way. Immerse yourself as much as possible into the state of life where you are already there. And just observe what changes. At the very least, you are shifting your focus to point B without any negativity. And that will inevitably trigger a new chain of events. But we'll tell you more about that in the next episode. We were filming a video with 12 steps but decided to shoot 8 steps instead because 12 takes a long time to film. And honestly, why would you need to do so much later? Let's cut it down to 8. And in the next part, there will be another 4. Or maybe we'll end up filming all 12 anyway. And yes, we'll shoot the additional 4. We haven't decided. Well, anyway, see you soon.